So we talked before about, going to New Zealand for Halo. So do you want to talk about that first and how that became this project?
Sure, yeah. We, Neil I guess it was in 2006, I think June of 2006, July, got hired to direct Halo, which was just crazy and out of the blue and a great opportunity. So we up and moved to New Zealand, and I'd say about 3 months into it, Halo got canceled, and we were devastated. And my daughter was 7 at the time and had just gotten excited about school and making friends, and everything was great. And it was pretty upsetting. And Peter had that happen before. When he first tried to make King Kong, it had happened to him. Mm-hmm. So and he's a pretty empathetic guy, and he felt badly that Neil had been moved over and that this had happened. So his wife, Fran, who's brilliant and amazing, she came up with the idea, why don't you do a feature of Alive in Joburg? And you can stay here, everything can be the same, it's just a different film. And we'll hope it'll get greenlit at the end when you're done writing it. So then we stayed on. And I wasn't involved in Halo. I was secretly involved in Halo, helping Neil behind the scenes, but I wasn't hired on to write it. So I was actually kind of happy that that happened.
Unlike all the Halo fans out there.
Yeah.
So when you started writing this one together, you went back, I'm sure, and looked, as you've said, at the footage from Alive in Joburg, but you had to come up with a new story.
You know what? I had seen it so many times that we actually didn't ever sit down and watch it.
Oh, really?
We knew the world inside and out. I mean, Neil knew the world inside and out. And it was, so yeah, we actually spent, I'd say, a month of 4 hours a day going to Peter and Fran's office, where Philippa Boyens, Peter and Fran, and Neil and I would sit and just toss around ideas and write them on a whiteboard. And I admit it took me probably at least 4 meetings before I dared open my mouth. It was kind of seemed like an intimidating bunch, but they were just really excited about ideas and just tossed things around. And after that, Neil and I went off on our own and wrote a couple different versions that completely different characters. And then about 6 months into that, we had to go to Johannesburg for a wedding. So we thought we'd shoot something, just test something to go along with the script. And Charlton, who plays Vicus, is one of Neil's best friends from when he was young, and he was also the producer on Alive in Joburg. So we had Trent, the DP, who eventually owned the film, myself, Neil, and Charlton in Soweto to shoot. We didn't know what. So that morning we all got together and it's like, well, let's think of a character. What can we do? Oh, and we had brought a vest that we'd had Weta build, an MNU vest. And so it's like, well, Charlton, you put it on. And he put it on, and he just became this character that was evicting people so aliens could move in. It was a different concept. And his character was just so strong and so funny that when I went back to write, first of it was a little bit part, which we never thought could be Charlton. And then he just took over. He was just such a great character that it just kind of became a life of its own. Then when we were able to actually cast Charlton, that was amazing.
Did you have to fight for him? Because I would imagine Hollywood being what it is, the money probably said A-list.
Well, if it hadn't been Peter Jackson, it would never have happened. But because it got independently financed, and then it got sold for distribution. So, and I guess, I don't know what would happen if it wasn't Peter Jackson executive producing, but he got final say on everything. Mm-hmm. And he saw what we shot with Charlton, and he thought Charlton was fabulous. He thought it was really, really, really funny, and he right away said, go for it.
And so for him, this is a huge breakthrough. I mean, he had done small things before, and
Well, this was actually kind of a weird thing, because he never wanted to be an actor. He never tried to be an actor. And all of a sudden he's an actor. So he's feeling incredibly lucky and incredibly shocked and not sure, so he's exploring a whole new life that he just never even. He's 35 and it just hadn't occurred to him.
Well, it's funny. I mean, what's been interesting to me about this too is you seem to have had a collaboration not just with him, but also with the guy who plays all the aliens. What's his name?
Jason Cope.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
He seems really interesting. And the fact that, a lot of this seems to be kind of ad-libbed and then changed. And so how did that work at the script stage? Like, did you plan for that? Or?
Well, Neil was always where, you can agonize all you want over that dialogue, but it's going out. I was like, no, I'm writing the dialogue. And then we get on set and they'd shoot it as written, and then and then they'd just go with it, and it would be like, okay, it's actually better their way. So it was a little bit humbling, but it just made it, I mean, it made it really natural.
Yeah.
It really did. Like, it was kept within the parameters of what needed to happen in that scene, and they had a really good understanding of story and the beats that had to be held and where it went. But they shot a lot of different versions of everything. And it definitely made for a better film, a more natural feeling film, I think, which is what Neil was always after.
Yeah, the dialogue particularly. I mean, you know, there's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of...
There is, I know, when my mom saw it, I was like, I did not put that. I will admit, I wrote F-O-K was in the script a lot. Fuck. Because it's just fun to say. But all the stuff Kubis says at the end, I didn't say that. And I wish I could take credit. There's a scene in there that is actually, it's really kind of awful when you think about it. But Charlton makes it so funny. It's where he's aborting the eggs. And afterwards, he's like, it sounds like popcorn. It's popping. I would give anything to take credit for that, but no, that's Charles. That's him.
That's a great line. That really made me laugh.
I love it.
Inhumanity of it. Oh, yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask, though, was, I mean, it seems like a lot of this has taken shape in the editing room because there's so much footage, because there's so much ad-libbing, because one of the characters, little CJ, is entirely CGI. So did you get to be there for that?
I was lucky. This has been an amazing experience just because I have been able to be there every step of the way. And you learn so much that way. Yeah. You learn so much. So it was seeing it take shape. I mean, there was points where I was like, oh, this is the worst film in the world. Our careers are over. And then it's the most brilliant film. And then it goes back to being the worst film. It changed a lot because there was the original shoot. And then we were lucky. There was 4 more weeks back in South. We were able to rewrite, and then 4 more weeks of shooting in South Africa. And then they actually shipped Christopher Johnson's shack back to New Zealand and shot in a soundstage and built the drop ship that was underground there as well. And so there was 3 opportunities to look at the cut and be like, oh, and redo it. And I think people that are able to do it all in one shot like that, I am in awe of, because it would be tough, I think.
It's interesting to me how many digital films that's been happening now, where they have 2 shoots instead of 1, or as you had 3. I mean, that's a wonderful opportunity to think again.
No, definitely. I mean, from a learning perspective, it was like you learn as you go. But for making a better product, it was absolutely. I mean, it was an odd film the way it was shot, just because there is so much. I mean, some scenes were shot documentary style, and then they were shot more cinematically, and you didn't know what was going to work till you actually got in the edit room. So there was a lot of guessing and playing around, and so I think that probably made it a little more difficult.
And it's kind of interesting to me because in a way, you're the perfect person to be in that situation, because when I first really got to know Terri, she was Bob Scarabelli's assistant at Rainmaker. And so it's very interesting to me. I mean, you must have gone through the process of seeing raw footage turn into on-screen magic when you were working at Rainmaker.
It's funny, I've never ever thought of that, but you're right. That absolutely helped me writing, because having been a part of the visual effects process before, it probably did help a little bit. And it also helped a little bit that I had budgeted films and I understood the process, because when we were writing, we were trying to keep budget in mind, which maybe isn't a good thing to do, but it helped in that respect as well.
Well, a film is big. I mean, you'd kind of have to.
Yeah,
because,
yeah. I mean, originally Neil was like, no, the aliens have to be practical. They can't be CG. And I would sob and cry to myself quietly and think, no, they have to be CG. It won't work if it's a man in a suit.
So, why did you want that so much?
Just because I just felt like it would just feel more authentic if their facial expressions, I really felt like their facial expressions and their eyes really had to, you had to feel it. And I didn't think it would work with a man in a suit.
Were there any major changes in plot that happened in post?
There were huge changes.
What kinds of
Well, it's I'm dying to spill them all out. But Neil is very, very, in interviews he's given, he is like, you know what didn't end up on the screen is not meant to be.
Now that's probably smart, because the next question I was going to ask you is, what are you going to do for the sequel? So are you maybe going to use some of that, do you think?
Well, I mean, there's talk of the sequel, but it's not a for sure thing. And when we wrote it, we absolutely weren't thinking sequel. Yeah. We never in a million years dreamt it would be this well received. Yeah. So we just weren't really thinking beyond that. I mean, the open ending was always like, yeah, that'll keep the financiers happy because everyone likes sequels.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're putting the money in, but we really didn't have a story in mind. And then it's like, where do you go? Like Neil's interest lies more with a prequel, where I kind of want to know what happened when little CJ and Christopher Johnson got home. And
Totally.
I mean, but I think the rest of the world wants to know what happens when they come back. So, so I don't know. I don't know what's. Yeah. I can, with all honesty, say I have no tidbits to give there.
People talk about awards, about this maybe winning awards for things, which, action sci-fi films, traditionally just don't get considered in the same breath as, the big, A-list actor, vehicles.
I mean, and I'm of two minds on it. I'm of one mind where I'm so excited for everyone that worked on the film. And I'm like, yes, they deserve that. And then I remember that, wait a minute, I wrote it. And it's like, no, it couldn't go for awards. It's a weird, and I'm one of those kids that grew up every Academy Awards, writing the list and voting. And I'm always the one that had the Oscar party. And it's like, it just seems that if we could even be invited to the award ceremonies would just be the most ridiculous, exciting fantasy ever.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that they're buzzing about it, whether it was real or not. It almost doesn't matter. It's like a huge compliment especially for this genre. And I'm starting to see a change. I mean, obviously with things like Battlestar, really giving credibility to this genre in television, and now, a film like District 9 doing so well, and not just talking about sci-fi stuff, but really making political statements.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that, I think, gives it an additional credibility.
I think that's definitely, it's so funny when first I was like, I'm not going to read reviews because they'll hurt my feelings. And then I read the really good reviews, and then I read the bad reviews that were started to come in, and they actually didn't hurt my feelings at all, because if they're looking at the film from that perspective, I get it. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't like it either. So, I mean, I understand. So some people, the political thing, some people that makes them like it. Some people, it makes them not like it. And fair enough. And it's like, same with the documentary stuff in the beginning. Some people are like, wow, that was great. Why couldn't they have sustained that for the whole film? And then other people are like, well, the first 20 minutes was utter crap. Why? So, I think with award type things, and maybe the political thing does carry a little more weight, but I don't know.
And how do you feel about the Nigeria thing?
It's
been banned in Nigeria.
And banned and all the copies confiscated and destroyed. It's like a book burning. We were really upset. And my take on it was always, it's a satire. Like, we're poking fun of people's prejudices, and it certainly wasn't meant to. But again, if I sit back and watch it through their eyes, then I could see where they're coming from, but that's not what we meant at all. It's so out there that but my big regret is putting the word Nigerian. And there was also the problem that the actors aren't Nigerian. And
right?
the lead, he is I think he's Malawian. I'm not sure, but that actually made some South Africans upset.
Well, it's a touchy part of the world. It's actually a very brave thing to make a film that has any kind of political content in that part of the world.
I was very relieved when we went to South Africa, because we actually had the premiere there, and I was so happy that the majority of the people were excited about it and proud of it, and it seemed to be a very positive thing for their country, they thought.
I think it is really positive. The main character's arc is a journey of discovering that these people are people. These aliens are people, that they have, the right to live. Yeah. And that's a journey of discovery that South Africa has taken. Yes. So, I think it's a very positive film in a lot of ways. Again, like you, I can sympathize. Yeah. It's awkward, but at the same time, I do think it's a really inspiring film.
I hope so. In some ways it isn't, in some ways it is. Yeah. It's like, my sort of message behind it was just that, you might not be able to solve the whole problem, but at least you can be kind to the person beside you. Yeah. So it wasn't never meant to be this is the answer, and if we all behave this way, then the world wouldn't have problems.
Well, it's not that kind of film, but the fact that he goes back at the end when he has the opportunity to leave and just, that was my moment of,
Yeah, good.
What are you going to do? What about you? You've always been a writer. Ever since I first met you, since 2001, you've been a writer. So is this going to make it easier for you with your future projects, or with projects you've been trying to get off the ground?
Well, I don't think it'll make it any easier to have them be good, but it'll definitely get them rad. But it's almost a little bit intimidating when the film does this well. It's like, oh damn, my next script now, it's I'm nearing completion because obviously when you're the writer, I was still involved, but I wasn't working full time on it, so I was able to start another project, and I'm almost done it now. And there's I was able, because of District 9, I have an agent now, and there's people that want to read the script. So, I mean, that's the first step.
Did you feel obligated to do something which is similar in genre?
They wanted me to, but I didn't.
Oh, really?
I didn't. I actually, I really liked the idea of adapting a short film, and I really liked the idea of working with a director. It's hard to imagine handing over your script and walking away after being involved like this. So we have a friend, Trevor Kaywood, who actually used to teach at Vancouver Film School, and he worked at Rainmaker as well, and he did a short film called Terminus that I just love. It's amazing, and so I approached him and said, "What do you think about if I wrote a feature?" And I ran that past my agent first, and they loved it. So based on the short and based on the success of District 9, they're willing to read it, but it's weird. It's not normal. So, I don't know, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's science fiction. There's a big concrete creature that follows this guy around. It's very, I don't know, it's very strange, yeah.
It's an interesting model, though. I mean, having a short film that then acts as, it proves the premise.
It just seems to me that the goal is to get stuff made, really.
Yeah.
And if they have this short and his short's done really well, it's won awards all over the world, and Cirque du Soleil bought it, they're putting it in there. So I thought, there's this great vehicle already, it would just make it that much easier to actually get something greenlit and made, which seems to be, it's like, I don't even care what you pay me, just make it. That's what's exciting.
Yeah, you were producing here long before you were, doing this. And, Vancouver's been your education.
But Vancouver, that film is, I almost feel like Vancouver should take as much pride in it as South Africa is, that New Zealand is. It's like that film really kind of feels like shooting a short film, like in the alleys here. Like it was the same. It was the DP, Trent, Neil started doing appalling little music videos with him when he was his very first ones, and Trent was the DP, and Charlton's the friend, and it's just all friends sort of hanging out shooting stuff all the time, always, and just it's like when I was at Rainmaker, it's like, yes, you get everything finished there, but that's if you're shooting on film. Nowadays you don't need a post house. You can do everything. It's just the more you go out and shoot, the more you learn, and and it's fun. It's fun. It's like playing. And well, this wasn't all fun, that's for sure. It was pretty stressful, but it was kind of the same feeling. And now that everyone's back in Vancouver again, it's like, okay, what little thing are we going to do now for fun while we're working on the big thing? And it's just helping each other out with each other's projects, reading each other's scripts. It's fun. It's fun. And I think that's what's great about Vancouver Film Schools. I'm sure you guys are all doing the same thing with each other. And Rainmaker was great because there was a camera there that we were allowed to borrow. So on weekends, we were allowed to take the camera out. But now it's like those sort of challenges. Everyone has a camera. Everyone can edit on their laptop. Everyone. I sound old, don't I?
No, but it's true. It's
back in the olden days.
In some ways, it's become easier to make a film, but it's become harder to sell it because there are so many people making cheaper films.
But there's the internet now.
Well, there is, and that's the next thing I want to talk to you about is the marketing of this film. I mean, we talked a little bit before about Sony and about the marketing machine that you got to witness, and I really wanted to ask you about that because I think they did a brilliant job.
They were incredible, honestly, and it was in touring around on the publicity thing, I was picking their brain just because it fascinated me. Like it really, when Sony was first going to market it, they would meet with Neil and Peter, and they'd have all these ideas, and they presented a whole bunch of ideas, and then it was up to Peter and Neil to pick which idea to go with. So they chose the idea to go with, but it was Mark Weinstock at Sony, and he loved the film. And he loved the film so much, and he was so excited about it that the enthusiasm and the effort he put behind it was incredible. It was like it was his own film. And it just shows in the marketing. It was, the viral marketing was crazy. The signs all over the world saying humans only. It started at, they started it like a year and a half early. It just was everywhere with no reference to a film or why it was happening. And so yeah, no, I give them huge accolades for the success of the film, because they really created a buzz.
This film already made $170 million. I know, isn't that amazing? As of this week. And I think the budget was 30
It was
million.
30, yeah.
So, you know, someone's going to offer you money to do a sequel. But the question is, I suppose, whether you two would want to do it.
Yeah, I think it's actually more whether Neil would want to do it, because he's pretty excited. He's already off on his next project that's his own original idea that he's... I mean, he would love to visit that world again, I think, but whether it'll happen, I guess we'll have to see. I hope so. Yeah, I know. I'd definitely be up for it.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Terri. That was excellent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming.